Okay, I'm going to switch over to Russia now. This is a very important question from somebody at the MGIMO, which is the Russian Foreign Ministry University. And just as a side note, these people were recently involved in a conference which featured a video produced by the team at LPAC on the credit system. Now, this gentleman asks, our Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, at the recent Russia 2012 forum last week, attacked the global bubble economy. Talking about the world economic crisis, he said this. This is a quote. The best case scenario calls for the rejection of bubble economics and returning to the economy of real entities, values, and assets. An economy that can be measured in human values. An economy that creates jobs instead of derivatives. That was a quote from Putin. Now, the questioner says, Mr. Putin is currently being attacked from different foreign spokesmen, both in connection with our elections and in connection with Syria. What should the Russian government do now to really get free of this monetarist trap? Should we use exchange controls or some other measures to stop the offshore funds and companies from doing capital flight? How can we get credit directed into investments in the real sector? Maybe instead of the famous Moscow as a world financial center, we should have Moscow as a physical economy center.
Well, that's the problem, is that when you get to a monetary center, and as opposed to a productive center, you're on the way down. You're being absorbed in the empire. Now you'll find that I had a number of enemies in Russia, high ranking in the Soviet Union, both on the STI question. One was died in the process, but he did sabotage the effort. Remember, the thing you have to take into account is in that period, everyone in Russia in the 1970s was aware of the inherent failure of the Soviet system. I was among one of those who understood that. I also understood at the time that the thermonuclear weapons development had created a situation in which no future government could successfully engage in general warfare, because the advent of nuclear weapons and other technologies had created a situation that no one could win such a war. Therefore, the question that came to me was, for me, my personal judgment, well, how do we deal with that then? And I had some contacts with some military and so forth, and I found soon associations with people who had been OSS people, leading OSS figures in World War II, who came to me. And we talked about these things, and I continued with my program for an SDI. But on the predicate, as I told the Soviets with whom I personally negotiated on this thing, and who agreed with me on this thing, that we had to have a certain kind of cooperation. And what we should do is take the first thing, which I call the Strategic Defense Initiative, later just called SDI. And people accepted it. We had leading people in Germany, retired military, but still active at the same time, like retired military, in Italy, in France, and so forth, old Gaulists and all that sort of thing. And we had an influential bloc, which included the Vatican. And in this process, we had actually the support up to a certain point, also from the Soviet leadership, what was left of it. Because they recognized that we reached a point where the economy of Russia was not working successfully, that war was, and the war problem was part of it, the weapons problem was part of it, a big part of the problem. And we could not have a nuclear war, because a nuclear war among major nations would be so terrible that you just would say, no, we've come to the point that war is not a legitimate means of statecraft. Because when you get to nuclear weapons, you're out of that. When you're getting into thermonuclear weapons, you're totally out of it. It's like the Neville Shute business on the beach. So that on the beach concept. Now what we've gone to is we've gone to a British desperation effort to go to that kind of warfare. the warfare on the beach, which is not nuclear warfare, it's thermonuclear warfare. Now, when you get to that level, you got another complication. When you get to that level of warfare, you have to go all the way with a peremptory killer strike. Now, a peremptory killer strike means thermonuclear weapons. And it means you're shooting for the virtual extinction of your opponent as the first step. Now, the way they have it now, the thing comes from Obama, President Obama. He's the stooge for the British Empire. And he should be thrown out of office because he's clinically insane. He's broken every law imaginable. And he should be thrown out of office, peremptorily. Impeached, thrown to the garbage pail, because we can't have him. We can't have any of these Republicans. So therefore, you've got to clear the way to get rid of Obama in order to get an electable president who's not going to be a complete mess. So we must throw Obama out of office and then pick a Republican leadership. It doesn't have to be only Republican. You probably get a lot of Republicans going along with such arrangement, because they're also patriots too. So that's where the situation is. Now the problem is, if Obama were removed from office, and the United States were thus returned away from Obama, then the British could not successfully pull off a thermonuclear surprise attack. The strike is first the Israelis, and all this negotiation with the Israelis is crazy. And the Israelis, who are any sense at all, don't want any part of this. But they've got a government in there, which is British-backed government in Israel, which is prepared to make a last-minute surprise launch of a nuclear attack on Iran. This is supposed to set forth an attack which will go together with Syria, attack on Syria, and on Iran at the same time. But the main strike will be a preemptive strike against Russia and China and other countries. It will be a full-blast thermonuclear attack with everything in the U.S. Navy, especially the submarines and other pieces of apparatus, and all the backup you want from it, so that the first stroke will be a killer stroke, peremptory stroke. And that's what we're headed for, and it won't work, because the attempt to do that will simply create an impossible situation for the continuation of any form of decent human life on this planet. And the British won't benefit, but the British have a different mentality than Obama does. Obama will kill himself. That's his profile, just the way that his predecessor, the Emperor Nero, did. Exactly the same way. His tyranny, Nero's tyranny, went step by step by step by step, until the point where he found he was going to be defeated, and he killed himself in order to avoid defeat. You got Obama is the same profile. His measures that he's taken, more aggressive, more aggressive, more aggressive, more aggressive, more violent, more fraudulent, more criminal, more treasonous. Every step. He's going marching down the road where he doesn't win, he has to kill himself. He may not actually kill himself, but that's his intention. That's his profile right now. So we're in that kind of situation where the British have gotten themselves an American puppet, Obama, who's nothing but a puppet. He's not really human. He throws basketballs against the wall. That's his political thinking. He should throw his head against the wall maybe and get it back in shape some way or the other. But this is what our situation is. And people have to understand this. This is the problem. We've reached the point that we can no longer have general warfare on this planet. You can have police actions which are really maintaining the peace in a sense. But you cannot have full-scale warfare, extinction warfare, which is what this is, because you will lose the human species. But the British monarchy doesn't care. Obama will kill himself. The British monarchy will not give up, because they see themselves as the empire, the tradition of the empire. Going back to the siege of Troy, they see themselves as that empire. And they have embedded in them an instinct, which I understand very well, an instinct which will not let them go. The only way to deal with them is shut them off and take away their American stooges. Without their American stooges today, they don't have anything. you have to get Obama out of office. If you're not out to get Obama out of office on reasonable grounds and peremptorily, you're not a patriot.